Harper Lowell knew she was in over her head the second she tripped over the marble step and nearly dropped an entire tray of tiny lobster rolls. "Whoa there," came a deep voice as a strong hand steadied her elbow. She looked up and instantly forgot how to breathe. Standing before her in a crisp black suit, with a loosened tie and the kind of jawline that made you second-guess every decision you'd ever made in life, was the man she was supposed to be serving. Noah Ellington, millionaire, CEO of Ellington Capital. And according to the internet, ridiculously, terrifyingly single. "This tray for me?" he asked, quirking an eyebrow as he took one of the appetizers. Harper snapped out of it. "Yes, sir, sorry about that. First time walking on marble in heels," he chuckled. "First time catering," she cleared her throat. "Something like that." Something exactly like that, her best friend, Julia, had begged her to cover for her last minute. Julia had come down with food poisoning and couldn't afford to lose the paycheck. Harper, a former barista currently between jobs and definitely not a caterer, had reluctantly agreed. How hard could passing out food be? Turns out, very hard. Especially when the client looked like he had walked out of a men's luxury cologne ad and kept looking at her like she was more interesting than the crowd of suited-up investors around them. "Thank you," Noah said, his gaze still on her. Harper nodded and turned away, cheeks burning. She made her way through the room, trying not to draw attention to herself. The event was being held in a ridiculous penthouse with a rooftop view of the city, the kind of place that had gold accents on everything and a grand piano no one was even playing. She'd only made it halfway around the room when a woman in a red satin dress hissed at her. "You, champagne's out, go fix it." Harper blinked. I don't actually." The woman narrowed her eyes. "Are you new?" "Do your job." Harper bit her tongue and hurried toward the bar, muttering under her breath. "Never again, Julia." She was trying to figure out how to uncork a bottle without it hitting someone in the eye when she felt a presence behind her. "You're not really a caterer, are you?" Noah's voice was close. Amused, Harper turned, clutching the bottle like a weapon. "What gave me away, the awkward tray shuffle or the fact that I almost popped this cork into the mayor's face?" he grinned. "Both," she sighed. "Look, I'm just covering for a friend who's sick. I know I'm not supposed to be here, I'll stay out of the way." "Don't," he said. She blinked. "Don't what?" "Don't disappear. You're the most interesting person in this room." He leaned closer. "And I've been stuck with these people all night." Harper stared at him. "You're kidding." He gave her a look. "Do I look like I'm kidding?" She didn't answer, because he didn't. And because he was suddenly way too close, and her heart was doing something it definitely shouldn't be doing while she was holding alcohol. "I'm Harper," she said finally, her voice low. "Noah," he replied. "Though I think you already knew that." She laughed, and it slipped out without her meaning to. The evening blurred after that. Between awkward small talk with guests and trying not to spill anything, Harper kept catching glimpses of him, Noah leaning against the balcony railing, Noah talking to someone while watching her from across the room. It was ridiculous. He was rich, important, and way out of her league. But every time their eyes met, it felt like something invisible sparked to life between them. Later, as the crowd began to thin and Harper was helping clean up, she felt a tap on her shoulder. "Come with me," Noah said. She hesitated. "I really shouldn't. I just want to show you something." Against her better judgment, she followed him up a short set of stairs to the private rooftop terrace. The city stretched around them, glittering under the night sky. "Wow," she said softly. "Yeah," he said, watching her instead of the skyline. "It's something." Harper turned to him. "Is this your place?" He nodded. "I bought the building last year." She gave a low whistle. "Must be nice." He tilted his head. "You don't care, do you?" She frowned. "Care about what?" "That I have money. That this building cost more than most people make in 10 lifetimes. That everyone here tonight is either trying to impress me or get something from me." Harper shook her head. "I just came here to pass out shrimp on a stick. I didn't expect this." He stepped closer. "Neither did I." They stood there for a moment, the night quiet around them. "I should go," she whispered. "Stay a little longer," he said, and for some reason she did. They talked until the city lights blurred, about books, travel, music. She told him about her love for sketching, how she'd given up on art school when her dad passed away. He told her about the pressure of running a company built by people who only cared about numbers. "I don't know what this is," he said eventually, his voice low. "But I haven't felt like this in a long time." Harper's breath caught. "I want to see you again," he added. She looked at him, really looked at him. "You don't even know me." "I'd like to," he said simply. She hesitated, then slowly nodded. "Okay," he smiled. "Tomorrow night, dinner, no trays." "No lies," Harper laughed. "Deal." As she left the building that night, her phone buzzed with a message from Julia, asking how it went. Harper didn't answer. Because she was already too busy reliving the way Noah had looked at her like she was the only person in the room that mattered. And that terrified her in the best possible way. Harper stood in front of her closet, one hand gripping the edge of the door, the other holding a dress she wasn't entirely sure fit anymore. The clock on her nightstand read 6:42, which meant she had exactly 18 minutes before she needed to leave if she didn't want to show up to dinner looking like she'd sprinted through traffic. She stared at her reflection. The dress was simple black, sleeveless, with a hem that flirted with her knees and a neckline that made her second-guess whether she should wear it without a necklace. She hadn't worn it since her cousin's wedding 2 years ago, and even then, she'd spent most of the night hiding near the dessert table. "Too late now," she muttered, slipping on a pair of heels that were slightly scuffed but still intact. The car waiting outside wasn't a cab. It was a sleek, silver town car with tinted windows and a driver in a pressed black uniform holding the door open before she could even say her name. "Miss Lowell?" he asked. "Yes," she answered, trying not to sound winded from the 3 flights of stairs she'd just climbed down. The ride across the city blurred past in a stream of lights and nerves. She didn't know where they were going. Noah had only said, "Leave tonight to me," which had sounded romantic at the time. Now it just felt vaguely threatening to her anxiety. The car pulled up in front of a building she'd only seen once before, from the sidewalk, while pretending to window shop the Maris. A restaurant with no signage, no menu posted outside, and a reputation for being so exclusive that even celebrities needed a referral. Noah was waiting at the entrance, leaning slightly against the wall, his jacket folded over one arm. He looked up as the car stopped and Harper's stomach flipped. "You look," he began. "Don't say nice," she cut in. He laughed, stepping forward. "I wasn't going to. I was going to say you look like trouble." "Better," she said, heart pounding. The hostess greeted him by name and led them past the main dining room, through a narrow hallway, and into a private space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river. A single table waited near the glass, already set, candles lit. Harper raised an eyebrow. "So this is your idea of casual? It's Tuesday," he said. "This is my version of pizza on the couch," she laughed, settling into the chair he pulled out for her. "I don't think you and I have ever lived on the same planet." "You're not wrong," he said, taking his seat across from her, "but I'm trying to learn about yours." The waiter appeared not with menus, but with a tray of small dishes already selected. Harper blinked as dishes she couldn't pronounce were placed in front of her. "Did you order for me?" she asked. "I asked them to bring what they thought was best." She picked up a fork, inspecting a delicate pile of something that looked like it cost more than her electricity bill. "Are you always like this?" "Like what?" "Confident, certain, just sure of everything." He tilted his head slightly. "Not everything." She set down her fork. "What aren't you sure of?" He didn't answer right away. His gaze dropped to the table, then returned to her. "I'm not sure how you walked into that party and managed to flip my entire night upside down." Harper's throat tightened. "You're used to people doing what you expect." "No," he said. "I'm used to people doing what they think I want." She looked at him carefully. "And what do you want?" He leaned back, watching her. "That's what I'm still trying to figure out." The silence hovered for a beat too long. She reached for her water glass, needing something to do with her hands. "So," she said, "how does a guy like you end up throwing rooftop parties with lobster appetizers and no music?" His mouth curved slightly. My assistant planned it with my investors in mind. I just showed up late and tried not to make a scene. You failed, she said. I was hoping to. Their food came and went. She tried things she couldn't identify, and he watched her reactions like they were more interesting than the food itself. They talked about the restaurant's chef, who had apparently trained in Tokyo, about the time she tried to bake cookies and set her oven mitt on fire, about a trip he'd taken to Morocco that ended with him getting stranded in the desert after trusting the wrong GPS. Harper glanced at him as they finished their dessert. Do you ever get tired of it? Of what? This life, he studied her. Sometimes, when it feels like everything's just polished surfaces and rehearsed conversations. And tonight, he shook his head. Not tonight. They stepped outside an hour later, the air crisp, her heels clicking softly on the sidewalk. The car was already waiting, but neither of them moved toward it. He looked at her, then up at the sky where the city lights drowned out most of the stars. I know this is fast, he said. And I know we barely know each other, but I don't want tonight to be the last time I see you. Harper crossed her arms, not out of cold, but because her heart was suddenly loud in her chest. So what are you saying? I'm saying I'd like to keep seeing you, not because it's convenient. Not because it looks good, because I want to, she hesitated. You don't even know what I do for a living. I know you're not afraid to call me out, I know you're honest, and I know you didn't pretend to be something you're not just because I own a few buildings. She laughed once. A few, he stepped closer, his voice quieter now. Let me prove it to you, give me 1 week. 1 week to show you I'm not some bored rich guy chasing a distraction. She stared at him, her heart tripping over itself. 1 week, she said. And then you decide if you want more. She didn't answer right away. But as the car door opened and she slid inside, she looked up at him through the window. I'll see you tomorrow, she said, and the door closed before she could second-guess what she'd just agreed to. The next morning, Harper opened her eyes to sunlight slanting across her bedroom wall and the worn hum of her upstairs neighbor's radio leaking through the ceiling. Her mind clicked instantly to the night before the candlelit dinner, the view from the Maris, Noah's voice when he'd said 1 week. She sat up slowly, heart beating a little faster than it should. It wasn't just the whirlwind of it all. It was the way she'd felt sitting across from him, like she'd been seen for the first time in a long while. And now she had no idea what came next. At noon, a knock came at her apartment door. She opened it to find a delivery man holding a long black box and a cream-colored envelope. For Miss Harper Lowell, he said, before handing them off and disappearing down the hall. She opened the envelope first. The card inside was handwritten, Tonight, dress comfortably, I'll handle the rest. N. Inside the box was a pair of buttery soft sneakers, the kind that belonged on runways, not sidewalks. She stared at them, then laughed once under her breath. Whatever tonight was, it wasn't going to be ordinary. By 5, another car arrived. This time, the driver didn't say a word, just nodded and opened the door. Harper slid in, nervous energy buzzing beneath her skin. They didn't pull up to a restaurant or a hotel. They stopped at a building with heavy iron doors and no visible signage. The driver opened the door and she stepped out onto a quiet, tree-lined street. Noah was already waiting, dressed in dark jeans and a charcoal jacket. His expression lit when he saw her. Perfect, he said. She looked around. Where are we? You'll see. He led her through the doors and down a hallway that opened into a cavernous space filled with blank canvases, paint-covered stools, and the sharp, heady scent of turpentine. A massive skylight overhead let in the last of the golden hour light. This is a studio, she said, awed. It's mine. I bought it a few years ago. I don't let anyone else in here. Why me? He didn't answer right away. Then, because I remembered you said you used to sketch, and that you stopped, her breath caught. I thought maybe, he added, you'd want to start again. You set this up for me? No, I set this up for us. He walked to a table and uncovered a set of supplies, new brushes, pastels, charcoal pencils, a row of fresh paper. There's no agenda tonight, no waiters, no crowd. Just us and whatever you want to create. She stepped closer to the table, fingertips brushing the edge of a canvas. It's been years. Then let's be terrible together, she laughed, something easing in her chest. They painted side by side. At first, Harper kept her strokes small, unsure. But as the minutes passed, she stopped trying to get it perfect. She let the colors move how they wanted. Noah, for his part, was worse than she expected. His attempt at a skyline looked more like a melted city, but he was grinning the entire time. "You're not even trying," she teased. "I'm trying to impress you with how bad I am. You're succeeding." Later, they sat on the floor, backs against the wall, their paintings drying around them. Harper hugged her knees, feeling lighter than she had in months. "I haven't felt like this in forever," she said quietly. "Like what?" Unburdened, Noah's tone softened. "That's how I feel with you," she glanced at him. "You don't drop your guard much, do you? Not often." "Why?" He looked at his hands for a moment. "Because the more you let people in, the more they know where to hit when they want to hurt you." She didn't respond right away. "Who hurt you?" He hesitated. "My mother left when I was 10. My father threw himself into work after that. By the time I was 16, I was already acting like the adult in the house. I built Ellington Capital because I thought if I could control enough, I wouldn't lose anything else. And did it work? No." She reached over and touched his hand lightly. "You don't have to control everything with me." He looked at her, something raw behind his eyes. "That scares the hell out of me." They sat in silence for a beat, then she said, "You know what scares me?" "What?" "How easy this is, with you. How fast everything's moving." "I can slow down," he said quickly. "But I don't want to." His hand closed over hers. "Neither do I." When they stood to leave, Noah offered to walk her home instead of calling the driver. The city was quieter now, the streets less crowded. They moved in sync, their shoulders brushing occasionally, every moment rich with unsaid things. Outside her building, she paused. "I don't usually let someone in this fast," she said. "I don't usually ask anyone to." She opened the door, then turned back. "You're not what I expected." He stepped closer. "And what did you expect, a man who has everything but wants more anyway?" "I don't want more," he said, voice low. "I want real." They stood there for a beat, city lights flickering around them, then Harper leaned up and kissed him, soft, sure. And completely her choice. When she pulled back, he looked stunned for the first time since she'd met him. "Good night, Noah," she said. And she turned and walked up the steps, heart pounding, not from nerves but from the terrifying, exhilarating sense that she was already falling. And she had no idea how far there was left to go. The first thing Harper noticed when she stepped into the gallery was the scent of fresh varnish and clean linen. The second was Noah standing near the far end of the room in a tailored slate blue suit, his back to her, as he spoke to a man in a crisp navy blazer. The way his shoulders set when he caught sight of her made her heart lift sharp and sudden. She hadn't expected the invitation. She'd barely slept the night before, still caught in the aftermath of their kiss outside her apartment. When his assistant called that morning with instructions and a driver, she'd been too stunned to ask questions. But now, standing in the middle of a curated art exhibition while guests murmured behind her and jazz played quietly in the background, she realized what this was. He was introducing her to his world. Noah crossed the room with purpose, his expression unreadable until he was close enough that only she could hear him. "You came," he said, something softer than surprise in his voice. "You sent a driver," she replied, lifting an eyebrow. "I wasn't going to risk you not showing." Harper glanced around. The gallery was built inside a converted warehouse, all exposed beams and high ceilings, with pieces arranged in minimalist clusters. But what caught her attention wasn't the art, it was the small placards next to three of the paintings near the center. Each bore a name, not the artist's, hers. She turned quickly. "Noah, you left your sketches in the studio," he said. "I found them the next day. I couldn't stop looking at them. You put my work in a gallery." Her voice pitched slightly, a mix of disbelief and panic. "I bought out tonight's event. I asked the curator to include them, quietly. You didn't think I should have had a say. I didn't want to pressure you. But I wanted you to see what I see." She looked back at the pieces, her charcoal lines, her raw edges, her vulnerability on display beside canvases by established artists. "There are real collectors here, Noah," she said under her breath. "And you're a real artist." She pressed her lips together, overwhelmed. "What happens if they ask about me? Then I'll tell them the truth, that you're someone they're lucky to discover early." He didn't reach for her hand. He didn't try to lead her to the crowd. He just stood beside her, letting her choose. Harper drew a breath through her nose. "You're impossible, but honest." She turned toward him. "You really think they're good?" "I think they're extraordinary." She studied his face. "Why are you doing all this?" "Because I want you to believe in yourself the way I believe in you, and because I've never cared about something this much, this quickly." When she didn't respond, he nodded once and stepped back. "I'll give you space, Noah." He paused. "Come with me." She didn't wait for him to answer, just walked toward the back of the gallery, away from the murmurs and champagne flutes, until they reached a quiet alcove near a sculpture installation. She turned to face him, her expression steady. "I've never had anyone go to bat for me like this. You deserve it. I'm still trying to understand why me. I told you, you didn't need anything from me, you didn't try to impress me, you just were." She folded her arms. "You don't owe me answers, Noah. But I need to know this isn't a phase for you." He stepped closer. "I don't do phases, I do plans, and you're not a distraction. You're the first person who's made me want more than what I already built." Her chest tightened. "What does that even look like? A life that doesn't revolve around boardrooms and quarterly gains. A life with someone who challenges me, someone who sees past the title." Harper studied him. "I don't want to be a project. You're not. You're a partner." Something shifted in her then. The weight she'd carried, the pressure to prove herself, the fear of being swallowed by his world, it didn't vanish, but it quieted. "I'm scared," she admitted. "So am I," he said. They stood in silence, the low hum of the crowd a distant pulse. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. He handed it to her. "What is this?" "Something I've been working on," he said. "A proposal." She opened it slowly. Her eyes scanned the neat bullet points. "A small-scale art incubator. Studio space for emerging female artists. Sponsored by Ellington Capital. Creative director position listed with her name." "I don't understand," she whispered. "I want to back something real. You said once you gave up on art school because life got in the way. I can't change the past, but I can help you build something better than what you gave up." She looked up, stunned. "You're offering me a job. I'm offering you a future, one where you don't have to struggle to do what you love." Her throat tightened. "And if I say no, then I'll respect that. But I'll still ask you to dinner tomorrow." She laughed, despite the emotion curling in her chest. "I don't need your money, Noah, I know. That's why I trust you with it." She folded the paper again carefully. "You're serious about this, every part of it?" "I want to be clear on something," she said. "If I do this, I'm not going to let you steamroll me. I have opinions. I'd be disappointed if you didn't. And I'm not going to let us become about business." "Then don't," he said simply. "Let us become something better." She looked at him for a long moment. "You're really all in, aren't you?" He nodded once. "I've never been more certain of anything." She stepped forward, lifted her hand to his collar and straightened it slowly. "Then let's try," she said. He leaned in, his forehead resting gently against hers. "1 week turned into forever faster than I expected," she smiled. "You're not the only one who didn't see this coming." They returned to the gallery hand in hand, her sketches still on the wall, the crowd shifting around them like a tide neither of them feared anymore. And as the night unfolded, Harper realized something she hadn't dared believe until then. Not only had she been seen, but she'd also been chosen. By a man who could have had anyone, and still wanted her. The rain started just as the last of the guests filtered out of the gallery, soft and steady against the pavement outside. Harper stood by the window, watching it streak down the glass, her arms folded loosely as she let the quiet settle in. Behind her, the space remained warm, glowing with the soft spill of pendant lights and the faint scent of wax and citrus from the catering cleanup. Noah was finishing a conversation with the curator. She could hear the low murmur of their voices, but her attention drifted back to the 3 pieces on the wall with her name beneath them. She hadn't moved them. She hadn't asked for them to be taken down, and that said more than anything she could have put into words. His footsteps approached, unhurried, and stopped beside her. "Everyone loved your work," he said, sliding his hands into his pockets. "I didn't care if they did," she replied, eyes still on the window, "but it felt good to hear it. I meant what I said. That studio is yours if you want it. The program too, no pressure, no strings." "I know," she said, "but I'm not going to take it just because you're offering. I'll take it because I want it, and only if I get to run it on my terms." Noah turned his head toward her. "What would your terms be?" "Space for artists who have been overlooked. No quotas. No gallery quotas, no age limits. I want people who have something to say, even if they haven't figured out how to say it yet." A flicker of admiration passed through his expression. "Then that's exactly what we'll build." She finally looked at him. "You're serious?" "Harper, I don't do anything halfway. If we're doing this, then we do it your way. I'll fund it. You lead it. You have full creative control." She narrowed her eyes slightly. "You're not worried I'll ruin your investor image?" "No, you might actually fix it," she laughed. "You're ridiculous." He stepped closer, voice dropping. "You know what else I am?" "What?" "Completely, hopelessly in love with you." Her breath caught. He didn't look away. "I didn't plan for this. I didn't expect it. You walked into that party with a tray of food and turned my entire life inside out." Harper felt every beat of her heart like a drum against her ribs. "I love the way you never pretend. I love that you challenge me without even trying. I love that you made me want something more than just success. You made me want a life." She shook her head slowly, eyes glassy. "You really mean that?" "I've never meant anything more." Her voice was quiet. "I love you too." He stepped forward, cupping her face, his thumb brushing across her cheek. "Say it again." She smiled through the tears she hadn't expected. "I love you." He kissed her like he'd been waiting a lifetime. Slow, certain, with the kind of heat that melted doubt and rewrote everything she thought she knew about falling. When they finally broke apart, she rested her forehead against his. "What happens now? We start everything." 3 months later, the studio opened in a renovated brick building downtown. The launch night was packed artists, critics, collectors, but Harper barely noticed. She moved through the space like she belonged there, clipboard in hand, hair pinned up messily, wearing a paint-splattered linen dress and the same sneakers he'd given her on their second night. Noah stood across the room, glass of wine in hand, watching her with a look that never wavered. He hadn't missed a single planning meeting. He knew every artist's name. He refused to take credit for any of it. When she reached him, he leaned down and kissed her temple. "You did it," he murmured. "We did it," she corrected. They left the event early, walking through the quiet streets hand in hand, stopping at the corner where the old bookstore used to be. The rain had returned, light and silvery, and Harper tilted her face up to it. "I want to buy this building," he said suddenly. She turned to him. "Why?" "Because you told me once that if you ever opened a gallery, you'd want it near where your dad used to take you for hot chocolate. I remember you said this corner felt like home." Her lips parted. "I want to build you a permanent space," he said. "Not for business, for you, for your story. For everything you thought you had to give up." Her voice caught. "You remember all that?" "I remember everything." She reached up, pulling his face down to hers. "Then let me tell you something else worth remembering. I'm listening. I want that life you talked about. I want all of it. With you." He kissed her again, deeper this time, right there on the sidewalk as the rain kissed their skin and the city murmured around them. A year later, they married in the studio, surrounded by paintings and laughter and a small crowd of people who actually mattered. Harper wore a simple ivory dress and no shoes. Noah wore the same tie he'd had on the night they met, the knot slightly looser than it should have been. When she walked down the aisle, she didn't feel nervous. She felt ready, because she wasn't walking toward the man who saved her. She was walking toward the man who saw her and let her save herself. They exchanged vows they wrote the night before, filled with promises not just of love but of truth, challenge, and growth. And when they kissed, it felt like sealing something far bigger than a single day. It felt like choosing forever. After the ceremony, they danced barefoot under strands of lights hung across the ceiling beams, surrounded by canvases and laughter and the scent of fresh flowers. Julia cried through the entire first dance, and when Harper hugged her, she whispered, "You were always meant for more than coffee counters." That night, Noah carried Harper across the threshold of the penthouse she once nearly dropped shrimp in, but it no longer felt like a palace. It felt like home because he was in it with her. He poured 2 glasses of champagne, handed her one, and tapped his against hers. "To falling fast," he said. She clinked hers gently. "And landing exactly where we're meant to be." They spent the night wrapped around each other, not because they needed to escape the world, but because they'd finally built one together, and in that world nothing was borrowed, nothing was pretend, it was all real. And it was just the beginning of everything.